Recently, we have been hearing about frequent heart attacks in youngsters, right? Most of these people we know they're actively working out in the gyms, no matter how late they sleep at night, how late they work at night, they get on workout on time. So we see that there's lack of sleep, they're sleep deprived, they're stressed for too long, and we see they are dehydrated, have certain enzyme deficiencies, especially in carbohydrate metabolism. And these particular individuals are at risk for sudden cardiac deaths when they go through high intensity workouts, especially when dehydrated. These days, we are seeing number of youngsters who are dying at a very young age, especially due to sudden cardiac deaths, right? So, the number of reasons for it. Most of the deaths are happening in people who are already active and people who are doing very serious workouts. That is what we are seeing. But what we need to understand is their overall health. Yes, physically they're trying to reach out to gyms, they're trying to work out. Irrespective of their sleep schedule, no matter how late they sleep last night, they want to get on time to and hit the gym and hit with high intensity exercises. But I see that there's chronic stress in a lot of these individuals, which is not addressed, and there's also sleep deprivation, which is not addressed. So I see these are the two important aspects, and also underlying to all these. For some of my clients, I do whole genome sequencing to understand what is their fitness genomics like. Most of them have this particular deficiency, which makes it harder to process certain carbohydrates. It is a deficiency of certain enzymes, which makes them impossible to finish their high intensity workout and can trigger their sudden cardiac deaths. So, for that reason, these particular people, we advise them to stay away from high intensity workouts and just stick with low and moderate intensity. So, these I have seen in 3 out of 20 clients at my own clinic. So first of all, we are not screening every individual for the genetics test, right? So we do not know what kind of genes they carry. On top of that, if we are neglecting our stress management, if we are neglecting our hydration, neglecting our sleep, all of these can contribute to sudden cardiac arrest. And also, the timely preventive screening is important. We all know there are certain risk factors which can increase the risk for sudden heart attacks or sudden heart diseases, right? Like low HDL, high LDL, and smoking, excessive alcohol consumption, high sugary, high fat diets. We know all these things are very risky, and high blood pressure also. But by the time we pick up these things, that this person has abnormalities in all these variables, it's already too late. Maybe the person is already having hypertension. So already the risk has progressed. So even before that, we need to look at certain root causes which might lead up to these risk factors, right? Much before hypertension develops, much before LDL has gone very high, much before HDL has gone very low. So we need to address things before that. So what are the things that are happening? One, insulin resistance, which is developing in most of the individuals due to stressful lives, sedentary work style, environmental toxicities, and all these things. So we are having chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, high oxidative stress. It could be because of a lack of sleep, no access to organic foods, or excess environmental toxins, heavy metals, using a lot of these synthetics products for cleaning clothes or even the floor. All these things will add up to oxidative stress as well. And also imbalanced microbial balance. That is also major root cause that it is associated with many number of diseases along with heart disease. And also sedentary lifestyle, lack of sleep, lack of stress management. These are the various variables that we need to look at even before these things go wrong. So if we are laying foundations, we should catch the individuals in the stage of insulin resistance by measuring for high fasting serum insulin levels, and checking out for high oxidative stress, checking out for any heavy metal toxicities in the body, checking for any chronic inflammation that is happening in the body. Because in later stages, all these will lead up to atherosclerosis or clogging your arteries, building up plaques inside the arteries. Then eventually the space in the arteries narrow down, and then blood pressure develops. So stages before that, if we can catch hold of the disease early in these different stages, we can balance the things out. And also when we're saying about microbial balance, for example, we all know the gut has trillions of bacteria, right? Both we have good and bad in a balance. And they are there for a reason. They coexist with us because there are certain foods that these bacteria feed on and release some good metabolites in the body. For example, take butyrate. It is called short chain fatty acid or SCFA. These are released in the body when these bacteria feed on certain prebiotic foods like onions, all whole grains, all these things. These SCFA production will keep blood vessel healthy. By that it means good dilation of the blood vessel, preventing artery from narrowing down, things like that. But in today's time, when the food is not a priority, nutrition is not given a priority, we are eating very refined foods or not concentrating on healthy whole grains or nuts or things like this, we are having less short chain fatty acids in the body. We have less butyrate. Blood vessels are not healthy. This is one of the things. And not just that. We have this gut epithelium. The barriers are there for a reason in the body. We have barriers in many places like blood-brain barrier, the gut barrier. So gut barrier prevents the toxins from the gut entering into the blood. So it is like a barrier. But sometimes, due to many factors, like we are not eating certain diet well, we are not sleeping, we have stress, or we are exposed to too many toxins in modern day life, all these things, our barriers, gut barriers are not able to keep a check. So what is happening, we have a lot of these lipopolysaccharides being released from gram-negative bacteria. These are not supposed to enter into the bloodstream, but these are entering into the bloodstream because the gut barrier is not effective anymore, and they are creating inflammation in the blood vessels. Whenever the blood vessel inflammation begins, imagine your protective layer, which is the innermost layer of the blood vessel, which is endothelium, will switch off, which means endothelium will not function the way it has to function. It has to function well, it has to release a molecule called nitric oxide, which will keep the blood vessel dilated and healthy. Now, if the endothelium is not functioning well, nitric oxide is not produced. The protective benefits are lost. Eventually, the ripple effects happen, loss of nitric oxide, more inflammation in the blood vessel, more oxidative stress. Eventually, the plaques build up in the interiors of the arteries. At long time later, it becomes narrowed down so much that the heart has to exert more pressure to pump the blood, which means blood pressure increases, which means hypertension. So all these dots connect from keeping the gut barrier healthy, which means we have to maintain good gut, to maintaining good endothelium, to releasing nitric oxide. For the terminal product nitric oxide to be released, there are a lot of things which happen from the beginning. We need to be eating first nitrate-rich foods. Most of us are missing out on it. So these foods, when they are eaten, there's something called eNOS, endothelial nitric oxide synthase, which will help break down the amino acids, especially L-arginine. It is used up to produce nitric oxide. So we need to be eating more nitrate-rich foods. We need to make sure we have foods which are rich in L-arginine. That's why we see many people take L-arginine supplements for workouts. Why? Because L-arginine eventually will be converted to nitric oxide and your blood vessels are healthy and there'll be more improved circulation. But this happens only when endothelium is healthy. Endothelium should be kept healthy. We should prevent inflammation from happening. We should prevent insulin resistance. We should maintain good gut barrier. We should eat nitrate-rich foods. When all these things are happening well, only then nitric oxide is released. So these are the many different stages that happen. So that is why I say finding these root causes are important. Reducing insulin resistance, reducing chronic inflammation, getting good gut balance is very important, along with stress management, good sleep, and maintaining social connections, one of the other crucial elements. We at our clinic have prepared a questionnaire on different aspects of what I spoke. See, take chronic inflammation. How can one understand if they have that chronic inflammation in the body? So the questionnaire covers all this. Are you sleeping less than 6 hours every day? Are you exposed to EMFs around you, which means do you use gadgets around you? Do you have internet modems around you? Do you turn them off? What kind of work do you do? Are you sedentary? If you're more sedentary, more exposed to EMF, sleeping less than 6 hours, that means you already have more risk factors enough to show that you are prone for chronic inflammation. Also, along with that, you're eating more refined foods, or your consumption of vegetables is very less per week. Your consumption of fruits is very less per week. All these will add up. So if whatever I'm saying is what you're doing, that means you have these. And oxidative stress also goes hand in hand. If you're exposed to more toxins, you don't have access to organic foods, you're not consuming fruits and vegetables on a regular basis, you're going to have more oxidative stress. Also, you're sedentary, you're not exercising, you're not sweating. All these factors will add up and say that you're prone for oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. Are there any tests? Yes, definitely we have multiple tests for that. For oxidative stress, a simple questionnaire can help us analyze that you are prone. But to understand that, we do something called oligoscan, which uses spectrophotometry to understand if there more oxidative stress in the body. By looking at the electron density of different molecules that are present under the skin. For chronic inflammation, we'll do look at factors like HSCRP, which is chronic C-reactive protein. We look at interleukin-6, things like this. For gut balance, as you're saying, how do I know if I have good gut balance? Many things. You need not have just gut-related symptoms like bloating, indigestion, nutrient deficiencies, but along with that, there are things like skin issues, dryness, and also you have things like joint issues. All these do connect the dots back to gut as well. But we need to test, right? So we have something called gut microbiome testing to understand, okay, what kind of profile you have. Do you have the basic bacteria, diverse foundational bacteria that are needed to be there in every individual? Do we have that? Are we growing any unwanted bacteria or fungi which shouldn't be there beyond certain limit? We get to know all these factors. We need to prevent disease much early, rather than we should not wait till our hands are burnt. If all these stages are passed, then only we see HDL will go down, LDL will increase, blood pressure will go high. Of course, you have been smoking, that will be an added fuel. Excess alcohol consumption paired with less sleep, all these will definitely lead up to sudden deaths in people who are already genetically prone, and also in people who are not prone but have a family risk of having a heart disease. Upon all these, one important thing which we shouldn't forget is a hydration. I've seen multiple people who are dehydrated and at exercise and have electrolyte deficiencies, which is also important factor that we need to know. And dehydration is very important risk factor again for recovery not happening after exercise or having a sudden heart issues. Overall, excess alcohol, I would say, beyond certain limit on different types of alcohol consumption has got effects on overall every system in the body. It could be cardiovascular, immune system, your gut health, everywhere it plays a role. It disrupts your gut health. Number one, it causes imbalance in your gut microbiome where the good and bad bacteria are out of balance. Number two, there will be reduced cardiovascular fitness. That is going to be at a later stage, but it do develop after a certain time. And your immune system is also will go off-wired in the sense that you'll be more prone for frequent infections and things like that. And if that is associated with dehydration, lack of sleep, and more stress, it will be an added effect in creating any kind of chronic health disease. But number one of everything, I would say, is obesity and insulin resistance. Those two chronic diseases will be affected, and leading will be type 2 diabetes and heart diseases. Mental stress affects every system in the body. When it comes to cardiovascular health, mental health has got a lot of role to play. When we say mental health, it is mostly chronic stress from the day-to-day work. In the modern days, right, we are multitasking and we have stress throughout the day. Long-term stress, chronic stress, multiple stresses. The cortisol is released in micro doses throughout the body. But body is not designed to release so much cortisol throughout the day. We need cortisol. It is there for a reason. We need to accomplish a task. We need to get that energy, that boost. during that specific period of time, we have little more blood sugar in the body, and blood pressure is little on a higher side because our muscles are fired, we need to accomplish a task. But that was during hunter-gatherers time when we have to run and get the food. Now we need not run for food. Food comes to the door, right? During this time, now since body is designed for specific other purpose, but still we are perceiving stress, body do not know what we are running for. Alert system is high. Cortisol is being produced continuously. Body can't cope up if the alert system is high all the time and inflammation is high all the time. That is why we have high cortisol, high inflammation, insulin released all the time, and we feel more hunger. We tend to eat more sugar-rich foods. We tend to eat more refined foods, and system will go off balance. Our immune system will start functioning at a much lesser phase, which will lead to immune dysfunction. And ultimately, this inflammation will also happen in vasculature, that is in the blood vessel system. When this inflammation reaches your blood vessels, our blood vessels will create plaques. There will be calcium deposits. These plaques later becomes hardened. Blood vessel is narrowed, we develop artery blocks, and can lead to sudden cardiac arrest later. But during the formation of this plaque, even before the plaque reaches certain size, there won't be any symptoms. That's the reason we are not able to catch people early, because the symptoms appear very late, or because the high blood pressure is neglected, or in certain areas there's no regular blood pressure screening. These are the many different reasons why people are not screened at an early stage. If you look at the statistics in India, today 29% of Indian population is already hypertensive, and according to certain studies, by the year 2050, if you look at the world data, 214 million people will be hypertensive. Look at deaths in South Asia specific, deaths due to cardiovascular diseases. We already have at least 1 million people dying just with cardiovascular disease. This will emphasize that we need to concentrate on atherosclerosis related cardiovascular diseases. We need to concentrate on blood pressure, regular screening for cholesterol, the regular screening for heart rate, resting heart rate variability, and also regular screening for cardiovascular fitness with VO2 max. So very early screenings can help catch the problem very early. Like I discussed, there are other root causes to cardiovascular diseases today, like oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, microbial balance, correcting your sleep, correcting your stress, and also reducing your body fat percentage. All these things should be cautiously taken, should be taken care very early, so that we prevent this hypertension and we prevent deaths due to hypertension. There are certain lifestyle diseases which used to happen at a very late stage in olden days, and now we see all those lifestyle diseases which were seen in 50s or 60s are now seen in 20s, 30s and 40s, right? So modern day lifestyle is very unplanned. Unplanned urbanization, reach to organic foods has come down. Our exposure to heavy metals, toxins is immense. We have very free exposure to EMFs, the radiation coming from gadgets around us, internet around us. By urbanization, we made our lives easier, but the same is creating a toll on our health, because it is making us more sedentary. It's making us exposed to things more. We don't have easy access to organic foods anymore because we are moving away from villages towards cities. And also, the preservation of fruits and vegetables is not happening in the right way. Even they are exposed to storing at different temperature points. And by the time the foods reach to our place, fruits are in oxidative stress. So all these factors have led to increased problems. That's why, and also stress is other major addition. And people not concentrating on breathing exercises, and not concentrating on gratitude practicing. All these things have only caused increase in chronic disease to happen in mid-30s and 40s. So the trend has been changing. So the day we move more, the day we exercise, the day we prioritize our health, mental and physical, then we'll see this trend changing again. in South Asia, there are many people who have family history of cardiovascular diseases, right? But that doesn't stop us from preventing it. We can prevent it by various pillars of health as we discussed: exercise, movement, stress management, sleeping better, eating food better, having good nutrition. By following all these, we can prevent early onset of these diseases for sure. Because we know epigenetics play a role. Though genetically we are determined to have certain problems in life, certain diseases in life, there is something called epigenetics, like the influence of the changes environmentally and exercise wise or other breathing technique wise, whatever changes that we can make around the genes can determine if the gene is turned on or off. We have the ability to turn off or turn on the gene. Suppose today I stop doing all the exercise. I don't follow any kind of breathing techniques. I don't manage my stress. I deprive my sleep. I'll be exposed to a lot of blue light in the devices at night, EMFs. If I start doing all that, I'll age faster. I'll have all the diseases in a very short period of time. That means these are modifiable lifestyle changes. By modifying the lifestyle, we can change the environment of the genetics, that is the epigenetics, and we can prevent the switch from turning on. So for heart health, there are various forms of diet, but the most important one WHO has recommended is called DASH diet or a Mediterranean diet, which including a lot of healthy fats. We all have been assumed that saturated diet fats have led to heart diseases. Yes, saturated diet in an excessive form is bad. But if you are balancing it with right amount of good carbs, good proteins and healthy fats, it shouldn't cause a concern. But people, if they're consuming excessive saturated fats along with excessive sugars, excessive carbohydrates, then they're going to face a problem. So Mediterranean diet focuses on eating rich fruits and vegetables. So including more plants into your diet, along with healthy inclusion of whole grains, proteins and healthy fats. When I say healthy fats, it's inclusive of polyunsaturated fatty acids. Culturally, if you are used to only plant-based diet since your childhood, that you are a vegetarian, then you should focus on getting amino acids into your diet by eating different kinds of legumes and beans. But culturally, you are not restricted to have a vegetarian diet. You can go for a balance between plants and meat, but you should have a good balance. That means your half of your plate should be with vegetables, and you could have a moderate consumption of meat. When I say meat, again, red meat has a lot of saturated fat, so you can consume it on a lesser frequency. You can go with lean meats like chicken or salmon, other forms of fish. When it comes to screening for heart disease, the basic one is ECG, but it depends on your symptoms. If you have a symptom, if you have a chest pain now, if you want to get it checked, then after ECG we do cardiac markers like troponin, tropi, trop-T, CPK, these ones. But if you are not having any acute chest pain, but you want to get it screened to know that if you are at risk for a heart disease, then we have angiograms to look for calcium score in coronary arteries. There are different ways that we do it. One is CT angio, one is a proper angio. Depending on what your symptoms, your cardiologist or your attending physician would advise. So along with that, even before any symptoms develop, I think a basic test everybody should do is a treadmill test or exercise stress test, which will put your heart at stress, induce exercise, and later see how your heart is tolerating. So I think this is the most important test that all of us should be doing to screen for presence of any heart disease.